And welcome to Counsel of the Day with Shanrae. I am Shanrae, and we are on week 2, part 2 of our monthly topic, which is hyperfocus disorder. And so I decided to expound or to talk about hyperfocus disorder this month from the movie that I saw on Netflix some time ago, Mr. Bean's Man versus Bee. And y'all know he's a comedian, so everything he does is super funny. And so he displayed hyperfocus disorder in this movie, Man versus Bee, on Netflix. But of course, he did it in like the super comedic way. And but I wanted to bring awareness to you all about hyperfocus disorder. So again, welcome to Counsel Today with Shanrae. I am Shanrae. Let me start with my website disclaimer on this evening. This is a 30-minute platform. It does run over here and there. And this is an open forum. And so you're welcome to ask questions. I will answer them to the best of my knowledge. If there's something that I'm not sure of, I will go and I will research it and get back with you with the answer. Or if you want to share some life scenarios, I will pause and bring highlight to that. So again, good evening. All right, so please be aware that due to the nature of the technology that I'm using, there could be no assurance of confidentiality when using this online service. Should also be noted that due to changes in policies, that all replies are to be used as advisory and informational only and will not constitute an official determination. If information provided by myself they're subject to the limitations of current and available material, but the final responsibility for successfully achieving a goal rests with you, the individual. If information online is designed to be helpful, however, this information does change frequently, and it is recommended that you will consult another physician, another specialist, and or religious leader to aid you in your overall behavioral wellness. All right, so I am a Christian counselor. And before I get to the scripture that I've chosen for the month, as a matter of fact, I said on Tuesday night, I'm probably going to stick with this scripture for the rest of the year. So I have one more counsel of the day for the year of 2023, and that will be in November, the month of November. But I think I'm going to stick with the scripture that I chose for this month, and I'm going to end the year with that. I am a degreed counselor, and so I acquired a dual degree from Ashford University. Bachelor's in psychology and that's a bachelor's of science in psychology, and then also a bachelor's degree in organizational management. My great passion is bringing healing to people who have been through a traumatic or stressful experience. When human beings experience trauma or severe life stressors, it's not uncommon for their lives to seem like it's unraveling. So I help clients who include children, adults, and families to find healthy perceptions of themselves and to help them strengthen their relationships so that they can know themselves as peaceful, complete, safe, and whole. All right, so we are on part 2. Okay, let me get to this scripture. So the scripture for the month comes from Ephesians 2:4-23. Excuse me. I chose the NIV version. And it says to be made new in the attitude of your mind. I really and truly love that, because what that's really saying, y'all know what it's saying, that we can do our minds, we can change. Our minds can be changed. Well, our minds could be renewed and our minds could be upgraded. Hey, Peaches, how are you? My sister is on YouTube. Hey, Peaches. All right, so let's move on with our key points for tonight. I'm going to open it a little bit and close it. All right, so the first key point for tonight is we're going to recap on Tuesday night saying. Number 2 is how to hyperfocus on boring tasks. People with hyperfocus, they tend to hyperfocus on things that are interesting to the person, and they tend to neglect or negate anything that's boring to them, like such as responsibilities, accountabilities, those things. But it's so how to hyperfocus on boring tasks. Can you trigger hyperfocus on boring tasks? That's number 3. Number 4 is how to manage hyperfocus. Number 5 is Gotskys, and it's spelled Vgotskys. So I'm going to say, for the sake of pronunciation, Vygotsky's zone of proximal or proximality, or like that. All right, so let's go on and recap what I talked a little bit about on Tuesday. The recap is when a person hears or a person says to someone with ADD or ADHD or hyperfocus or someone that may have it all, when someone says that they can focus when they want to. And as I said on Tuesday, we all can focus when we want to on what's interesting to us. A person that is experiencing hyperfocus disorder, they do have, it's a little harder for them. Sometimes it's severely harder for them to focus on things of responsibilities, things of accountabilities, because to them it's something that's not of interest. Now, I am going to say this: most people will rather not focus on something that they're not interested in, or something that is, that is, when it comes to being accountable or responsible. Most people have these same tendencies. Someone with hyperfocus disorder, theirs is just a little bit more imbalanced. So it's like they really do struggle with trying to focus on something that's not capturing their attention. All right, so the ability to hyperfocus can be frustrating to parents, to teachers, to spouses, and I'm going to say, because my sister's on here, the principals of schools, social workers, like that, and results in comments like we just said, that they can focus when they want to. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. However, the ability to focus is more complex than just wanting to. Lots of people with ADHD want to focus, perhaps on a lecture or what their partner is saying to them, yet they can only hyperfocus on an activity when there is the right balance of personal interest, stimulation, and also reward. Okay, so let's move on. What is this next question here? Or this next highlight? Peaches said difficult to complete tasks, and that is very, 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 very true. When you already have the disorder of ADD or ADHD, of course, it is very difficult. But when that's coupled with hyperfocus disorder, that makes things very, very, very severe with that person. Now, is there a cure, or can it be rectified? Yes, it can, but you're gonna have to put the work in. They're gonna have to put the work in, and they're gonna have to be deliberate about it. I've given strategies starting last week, and then also on Tuesday night, how someone with hyperfocus disorder, along with ADD or by itself, the things that they can do to help themselves, to help so they can start recognizing their triggers when they recognize what they love to hyperfocus on, then they can begin to start recognizing triggers and start learning how to counteract that severe hyperfocus. So what is ADHD hyperfocus? And then how to hyperfocus on boring tasks. Now, this theory comes from Dr. Olivia Guy Evans, and it's also reviewed by PhD Dr. Saul McLeod. So people who hyperfocus may often experience what they call time blindness, which means that they do not see or feel time at all. Okay, so someone may hyperfocus for hours at a time and not even realize how much time has gone by. They're unaware of how quickly or slowly time is passing. And parents of a child with ADHD may also be confused as to why their child is able to spend all day focusing on their hobbies. But then when it comes, they can't focus on other tasks, or when it comes to listening, when somebody is speaking to them. So, and this is when a parent gets frustrated and says to them, you can pay attention when you want to, which again, hey CJ, how you doing? Which again, there's truth to that. Yes, you can pay attention when you want to. Again, they pay attention to whatever is stimulating to them, whatever is rewarding to them. Okay. But however, people with ADHD often want to focus on other things such as schoolwork, their household chores, yet they find that they can only hyper-focus on certain activities. All right, so people with ADHD have the capacity to attend, but they cannot engage that attention for things that really that they really want to do. Now, I'm going to pause here. CJ said, okay, CJ, I'm so glad to have you on tonight. Studies have shown, and I know Peaches, I know you know what I'm saying, because you are a principal. You have been a school principal for years. And so if there's been studies to show that there are a lot of, in prison, there are a lot of undiagnosed people in prison, or they have gotten diagnosed while they were incarcerated. Coming to find, they find out that they have attention deficit disorder or hyper disorder or hyperfocus or different type of things like this, or hyperfixation. And then when they're of course, incarcerated at the time, then they start getting the treatment that is available to them. And then the person themselves start to understand and start to realize, oh, this is why I think this is this way. And there's also theological proof, research, longitudinal, long-term research that also shows that people with severe ADHD, ADD, this type of symptoms, that they also are prone to criminal activity. So this is why the prisons are filled up with people with these type of disorders they weren't treated. They didn't get the proper treatment that they needed. We know that the mental institutions, of course, are filled up with people where maybe the disorder has just gotten out of control, and now they're trying to go on and trying to get them back balanced and regulated. Peter said that it's amazing how many adults are being identified with ADHD. Exactly. Now I'm going to pause here because I'm going to reiterate what I said on Tuesday night. And so what I shared with the audience on Tuesday night, what really sparked me to go to college and to study psychology was I had noticed with my children, two out of three of my children, they were having some issues when it came to learning in school, when it came to focusing, when it came to with their homework. And so, and it took a very long time for us to get through at home with them to finish their homework. And they were frustrated and they were agitated. And I was trying to find different ways to try to help them understand what they were learning. So I had talked to their primary care physician, and I explained. I said, I want them tested. Well, their doctor, he fought me. He said, no, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with your children. And I said to him, I'm their mom. I live with them. And I said, and I'm the one that's sitting and working with them. I just want them tested. There's something that's going on that I need to know about. So he finally caved in, and he went ahead and tested them. And it came back that 2 out of 3 of my children had ADD, not ADHD. They didn't have the hypertensive, but they had ADD. And so, and then we went on and started taking the steps to getting the strategies that they need to help them. And then they put them on a very mild dose of medication to help them be focused and centered in school. So I remember talking to my grandmother when we found out about this. And my grandmother was in her 80s at the time. She died when she was 96. And I told her, what we discovered with 2 out of 3 of the children. And I told her, the different things that they were saying that, we had to put in place to help them be successful. And my grandmother said something to me that really shook me up at that time. She said, thank God they have a name to it now. Thank God they have names. They found out what these conditions are. She said, because when she was growing up in school, and again, my grandmother passed at age 96. She was in her 80s at that time when my children were diagnosed, early 80s. And she said, and when I was a child growing up, this is what my grandmother said. She said they labeled us as dumb. She said they didn't know what was going on, so they put labels, especially on our culture. She said they just labeled people as being dumb. And she said, and our people were far from dumb. She said they were far from dumb, but she said they didn't know what to label it. So they just labeled them dumb. And she said, you do everything that you can do to make sure that the babies will be successful. And so again, I love bringing awareness about different disorders, because some people may be experiencing it. Some people may know someone who's experiencing certain symptoms, and they don't know that there's a label or a name to it, and that there's help. Okay, so that is what helped spark me to go back to college and get my degree in psychology. Peaches said, parents must be involved to select the appropriate accommodations for students to be academically successful. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. Y'all know I'm a retired teacher as well. I was special ed MOID. And the parents have to do their part. I was the one who noticed with my children, with 2 out of 3 of them, that they were struggling and how frustrated they were. If I didn't continue to push with their doctor, and you know what the doctor said? The doctor said I would have never thought that they had ADD, because your children are so well-mannered. They're so well behaved. And so the doctors at the time, they only affiliated ADD with ADHD, with the hypertensivity. And they were just blown away how well-mannered the children were. And so they never put it together. They was like, they're too well-mannered to have a diagnosis. So their doctors learned something about this condition. So this is why I bring certain things to, I try to bring awareness to certain conditions and disorders, and also bring awareness that there are cures and remedies for these things. All right. So can you trigger, let me go back. It says people with ADHD have the capacity, all right, but they can't engage that attention for things that they don't really, really want to do. And this is by Dr. Andrew Huberman. He's a professor at Stanford School of Medicine. He's the one who said that. So there may be some ways. I'm getting ready to move on to now. Can you trigger hyperfocus on boring tasks? All right. And yes, you can. So there may be some ways in which hyperfocus can be used to your advantage. And we talked about this even last week. If you need to complete boring tasks. So number one, Number one says put away your distractions. And that's with any of us. You don't even have to have this type of disorder. If you put your phone, this is the biggest distraction nowadays, this cell phone. Put away your distractions. I know Peaches, as a school principal, I know one of the biggest distractions with your students, you see, is this cell phone, these cell phones. So put away your distractions. So if you have a work or school assignment to complete and you know you're likely to be distracted, remove the distractions. This could include putting your phone in another room or switching it off and blocking certain distracting websites on your computer until your work is complete. Without unusual distractions, it could trigger you to hyper focus on the task at hand. I'm going to pause here. I remember Peter said exactly. And y'all know this is counsel. So I'm going to talk about different counsel and different things that I've experienced and I've learned about, but experienced as well. I remember learning about there was a study going on, and they were studying adults who were going back to school. It wasn't college; it was like trade schools and stuff. And what they found out, again, here we go with the hyperfocus and the ADHD and all of this. So with the study, they found that a lot of the adults, male and female, while they were supposed to be working on the computer, and now these adults who are paying, they were paying for this education so they can, succeed, be able to go into a different field and make more money and live better. But while they were paying for these classes and stuff, they would be distracted and they would start going on pornography sites. They would go onto porn sites when they should have been learning. They got distracted and started researching porn sites and watching porn in class. This is adult learning, rather than learning and doing their, put away the distractions. It's like they said, even with the computers, if you know that you are the type of person that will do something like that, anything entertaining, then here you're going to have to find a way to if you got to have somebody help you be accountable for the things you're doing, you got to have prompts or something. This is serious. It's not just children. It's a lot of adults that experience this. They may not even understand what's going on with them. They may not even understand, why can't I focus on what I need to focus on? And instead, I'm going to find a way to focus on what I want to focus on, So find a way to put away these distractions. Number 2, make work creative. So if you find it hard to focus on work, writing or studying notes, make your notes into a presentation or performance instead. This may not work for everyone, but think about ways in which you can tap into what is interesting and stimulating for you. Number 3 says it's called the Pomodoro method. So I'm going to spell that. The Pomodoro method. Lady Demore said, find a way. She said, amen. The Pomodoro method is Pomodoro. Oh, let me move this along. I'm steadily talking and I'm not moving this along. Okay. The Pomodoro method. And that should be it right there. This is a technique that is commonly used for studying. So it involves dedicating a certain amount of time to focusing on that work, followed by some short breaks. I actually use that. That helps me. So I when I'm zoned in, but then I take breaks to get up and do something, maybe look at something different or look up something else and then keep going on back to what I was doing. So for instance, you can set a timer for like 25 minutes, during which you only spend that time on whatever your task is. And then when the timer goes off, you have maybe a 5-minute break. Now I'm going to pause here. When I was working with special ed, my special ed user timer, Peaches, yes, that's what I was going to say. When I was working with my middle school special education classes, MOID classes, this is what I use, the Pomodoro method with them. And we have to actually. Like, maybe we can only do 15 minutes. We would do like a 15-minute block on certain things, and then we would have to break. And we would have to give them sometimes 10-minute breaks. And so I would find ways to do constructive things even during the breaks. And it really did help with them. And I have to say, Peaches, who is, again, she's a principal, a high school principal too, at that, and have been for years. I'm not bragging, but I have to say, I thank God for the strategies that I researched and was able to incorporate into the classrooms. Peaches, I had success with my students, and several of my students graduated from middle school on time at their age, at their normal age. They were not held back. I was also punished from my principal for that, but that's a different story. But I'm telling you, these things work. The Pomodoro method, it worked. If it worked for my middle schoolers, we did this. And we used this also with the end of the course test. We had to do that. They had to take their breaks. But I'm telling you, I had great success with my students. Several of them graduated on time and went to high school. I'm telling you, that was amazing. And for those that are teachers, y'all, I'm sorry, I'm having a flash, y'all. But those that are teachers and principals, you all know that is a great success, especially when it comes to the special education department. So it works, guys. The Pomodoro method works. Number 4, exercise before the task that you do. If you don't have a lot of time, they have all kinds of videos on YouTube. If you want to do a quick 5-minute dance, do exercise, try to do something, walk in place. If you can walk up and down your steps, if you can walk to your mailbox and back. Y'all know I used to jump rope. I had, my doctor made me stop, but I loved my jump rope. I would do 100 jumps. If you can do 100 jumps, break it up. I would break it up 25, 25, 25, 25, and I'll be done in like 10, 11 minutes. But if you can exercise before a task, before completing any boring task, exercise, such as taking 15-minute run. We know sometimes we don't have that much time, but it can help to settle your mind, help you feel calm, help you feel focused on that task for that day. And it does. The exercise does work. Number 5, don't do fun activities first. Do not do anything fun, anything exciting. Don't do that first, because if this is something, if you have issues with hyperfocus or hyperfixation, if you start the exciting stuff first, you'll never accomplish your task. Okay? It can be hard for somebody with ADHD to switch out of doing fun activities once they've started. And this can also trigger the hyperfocus on that fun task. And a lot of times it really does. All right. So instead, try to complete your task first. Less exciting task for that day first. And then the enjoyable activity can be used as a reward for whatever time is left in that day. And this really does work. Lady Demore says, and you were dressed to the 9 while jumping rope. Thank you. You're so funny. Thank you. Number 6, gamify your life. Now, I'm gonna tell you the perks about being with hyperfocus, hyperfixation, ADD, ADHD. A lot of times, the person is so creative. That creativity part, that creative part of their brain is just like off the chain. And so, if you can find a way to gamify your life. Gamification is the application of adding game-like elements to non-game contexts to encourage participation. This is something that really does work. If you can make it a game, since games are popular, popular hyperfocus activity for people with hyperfixation, hyperfocus, ADD, ADHD, gamifying tasks can make them more enjoyable and can trigger hyperfocus with that. When they do that. Number 7, make tasks more stimulating. So this can work well on cleaning and organizational tasks that need completing. For example, you could play some energetic music or a podcast that you've been meaning to listen to while you're cleaning the house. And that really does work. It helps, it gets you going. I know music gets me going when it comes to housekeeping and stuff like that. Likewise, you can challenge yourself to clean a room or organize some files within a certain amount of time. For instance, you can get a 5-minute timer, try to fold your laundry before that timer goes off, and that does work too. Yeah, it does. Any ways in which boring tasks can be made fun and stimulating could help to trigger hyperfocus on that exact task, and it'll help you to get that task completed. So number 8 says use stimulating environments. So some individuals with these 3 things, ADD, ADHD, and hyperfixation, may find that certain environments such as coffee shops or libraries provide the right level of ambient noise or activity to help them concentrate and enter a state of hyperfocus. All right. The key is to find environments that strike a balance between quiet and stimulating, allowing yourself to engage your attention without feeling overwhelmed or bored. It's also important to note that individual preferences can vary widely. And so what works for one person may not work for another person. Some people may find other settings such as parks, co-working spaces, or background music playing in the background more conducive to triggering their hyperfocus. So, you have to find what works for you. Now, how are we going to manage this? How are we going to manage hyperfocus? And I think, okay, here we go. So number 1 says identify your hyperfocus triggers. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. A good place to start is to be aware of what your hyperfocus triggers are. These will often be activities that are intrinsically enjoyable for you. So consider what it is about those activities which trigger hyperfocus. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, with those studies, the study I told you about the adults who were going back to school, they were trying to get another trade, and they're paying for this education. But when they're in the setting of learning, they started hyper-focusing, or they were getting bored with whatever was going on, in the class. So they wound up doing a study on it. They found that a lot of these adults started going on porn sites. While you're in a academic setting, they're going to go on a porn site, and because that's stimulating to them, they sat there and watched porn until they was kicked out of school. They watched porn rather than learn what they were paying to learn. So this goes back to your triggers. It goes back to identify your hyperfocus triggers. And to me, that's an expensive lesson to learn right there. If you're paying to go back to school or to get something, and you're, what I'm saying, you're there, and then your mind is wandering off on the wrong thing, especially at the wrong time. That's a very expensive, because we all know as adult in an adult learning center, whether you pass, whether you graduate or not, you still are held accountable for that bill. So that bill is still going to be there whether you graduate or you don't. So that's really, but with that study, that was serious. That was a serious study. So identify your hyperfocus triggers. Okay, number 2, timers. They're going right back to that. Setting aside a certain amount of time for hyperfocus activities and then arranging a timer to go off at the end is a good indicator that it is time to stop and to move on to something else. So setting multiple timers to go off every few minutes can also be useful if you find that you may ignore the first one. I know I do multiple timers. It can also be beneficial to have a visual timer directly in front of you so that you can actually see the time in your environment. And this can also help you to bring your awareness to your surroundings so that hyperfocus is less likely to happen. Now I'm going to pause here and share something with you. While I was in school, going to college, I worked as a private duty nurse. And so I did that for a number of years. Now I was in college for 4 years, but I was also a private duty nurse for about 4 or 5 years before that. So that just helped take me through working that, took me through school as well. And I had a lot of patients that had Alzheimer's and dementia. Now I had to start training these patients, my clients, with timers. And I'm telling you that it works, because this worked with my clients and my patients who had Alzheimer's and dementia. So I had timers that I would set throughout the time that I was there. I would be on 12-hour shifts with them, or sometimes 16-hour shifts, depending on the patient. I would set timers. I started getting them familiar with timers, and I would keep visuals taped up on the walls. So if one timer, like next to the clocks, if one timer would go off, when they looked up, when they heard the timer go off, then they can see their reminder. I would have reminders in big bold letters printed, and it would help them to help jog them, help them to know what to do at that time. So their life they can still have a form of dignity, in their lives. And so when I say that these timers work, if they worked with my Alzheimer and dementia patients, they can work for someone as something as simple as ADD, ADHD, or hyperfocus. It works. All right. Number 3, reminders. For important tasks or chores, you can set reminders to go off on your phone or other devices. We talked about that. This can help to distract you from a hyperfocus task. Depends on the person. And bring awareness to what else needs to be done. You can also leave Post-it notes. Look at that. Post-it notes in your line of sight as a reminder of other tasks to complete. That's right. Number 4, let's delegate some of these tasks. So if you know that some tasks are likely to make you hyper-focused, but there are other important things to do in the day, consider asking a friend or a coworker to help you complete some of your tasks. I don't know how many coworkers is going to help you do it, but going to help you complete your job, but it's nice to ask anyway. Number 5, ask someone to distract you. Okay, you can arrange with a friend or a partner to distract you at a time that you wish to stop your hyperfocus activity. At work, this could also involve a coworker to send you an email as a reminder to move on to another task. Now, honestly speaking, when someone is seriously hyperfocusing or hyperfixating, it goes back to the parents when they're calling, when a spouse may be calling their other spouse, or call their spouse, and they're trying to get their attention, and the person is so hyper focused till they're not paying attention. So this may work. It depends on the person. This may work, it may not work with asking someone to distract you. Number 6 is consider your career. So while this may not be possible for everybody, it may be helpful to find a career that caters to your interest. This can help to use hyperfocus to your advantage, and you will likely be more motivated in a career that you enjoy. All right, and that's with all of us. We're going to be way more motivated in our career if we're in a career that we enjoy. All right, number 7 is schedule hyperfocus activities. So if you need to be somewhere during the day, such as an appointment or a work meeting, do not start a hyperfocus activity right before then. Again, don't do that. Also, try not to do this hyperfocus activity before you go to bed, because as you may find it hard to stop, and this can disrupt your sleep, which it is going to. So instead, you can schedule when you allow yourself to hyperfocus, schedule it as a reward when you have no other responsibilities, or after you have completed everything that you plan to do. Use it as a reward. All right, so let's move this on. I don't think I moved this. Okay, yeah, I didn't. Where? Oh Lord, I just totally didn't move this at all. Here we go. Okay, Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. I'm going to open this up a little bit. I did want to end with this. The zone of proximal development. Okay, so the zone of proximal development refers to the difference between what a learner can do, what a learner can do without help, and what he or she can achieve with guidance or with help. and encouragement from a skilled partner. So, thus the term proximal. It refers to those skills that the learner is close to mastering. Or the ZPD, the zone of proximal development, is the zone where instruction is the most beneficial. So as it is when the task is just beyond the individual's capabilities. All right. So to learn, we must be presented with tasks just outside of our ability, our range. That's all of us. When we learn, okay, we're presented with something that's just a little bit outside of our ability range, something that's going to challenge us, the challenging task to promote maximum cognitive growth. All right, so that's what the zone of proximal development is. Okay, I'm going to go back to it again, and that's with everybody. Okay, so it's again, it's the refers to the difference between what a learner can do with help and what a learner can achieve with guidance. Okay, excuse me, I said that wrong. So this is the zone of proximal development is the difference between what a learner can do without help, and then what they can achieve with guidance or with help. That's all of us. All right. So I'm going to move this on. And the zone of proximal development was developed by Soviet psychologist and social constructivist Lev Vygotsky. All right. And this theory was developed in 1896 all the way through 1934. Okay, so this means it's a proven theory. So I'm going to move this along again. I am excited when I learned about ADA. Let me open this up. Peaches, if you are still on here, oh my gosh, I am so excited about ADA. ADA is a community. You can join it online, a free community, ADDA plus community, and it's specifically for people that have ADD, ADHD, hyperfixation, hyperfocus. It's a community where they come in and they can share, and they have a support system, and they have different things that they learn that are available to them. ADA plus community. I am so excited when I researched and I found out that there is a support group called ADA Plus for those with ADD, ADHD, hyperfocus, hyperfixation. All you got to do is go to www.adapluscommunity.com. All right, let's move this on along. Yes, Peaches, I love that. I love when I find out about new communities and new support groups. I'm telling you, ADA. Okay, so the takeaway for this evening is, oh my God, and it didn't come out. It says identify hyperfocus triggers. I'm going to say that again. A good place to start is to be aware of what your hyperfocus triggers are. These will often be activities that are intrinsically enjoyable for you. Consider what it is about those activities which trigger your hyperfocus. Okay, so that's the takeaway. Identify your hyperfocus triggers. Our quote and I'm going to use this for the month. I love this quote. You don't have to control your thoughts. You just have to stop letting them control you. And this is by Dan Millman. Peaches said, I will share as a oh, thank you. I'm telling ADA Plus community. So again, the quote for this month is, you don't have to control your thoughts. You just have to stop letting them control you. And that's by Dan Millman. All right. So, BetterHelp.com. If there is if you need a safe space, and I'm going to have to make sure that I still have this. If you want a safe space to speak with a licensed professional online, BetterHelp offers affordable counseling sessions for individuals, couples, and family members. If you want a safe space and they're affordable, www.betterhelp.com. All right. So if there is, let me open this up. This is my website. This is where I got all my research, guys, for my fellow counselors and theorists. This is the website references. All right. So if there is a past Counsel of the Day with Shanrae series that you missed or you just want to rewatch, you can go to my YouTube channel at Shanrae Price. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications, and then select any past series that you would like to watch. Also, I am a professional one-on-one counselor, and I'm going to say this, if you're interested in professional one-on-one counseling with myself, feel free to contact me via Facebook Messenger at Shanrae Owens, or via my email at shanrae.price@gmail.com. I'm a lifestyle strategist, and my aim is to aid you in your life's goals and your life's dreams. Listen, I do calls. If you just need to work something out, if you need to schedule a call with me, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I do 20, 30-minute calls like that. I do it by the short minute counsel, and then I also do 60-minute, 90 minutes, and 2 hours. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you just need to work through a strategy or work through something, I am available for quick counsel. All right. So thank you for participating in Counsel Today with Shanrae. This has been week 2, part 2. I will see you all next Tuesday and next Thursday for week 3. There are 5 weeks in this month. So we got 5 weeks of this topic. Okay. And I look forward to seeing you all Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for week 3, part 3 of a different subtopic of hyperfocus or hyperfixation disorder. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week and weekend. Thank y'all so much for participating, and good night.